So I'm going to talk about the power of context tonight. And this is related to the question of the week in the dojo. The question is, how can context help us be more mindful? And you can think of this in a lot of different ways. When I say context, I'm essentially referring to like a shorthand for your brain. When you put yourself in a certain context where you think of yourself or your situation in a certain way, it kind of automatically brings certain kinds of thoughts and actions up. And so a simple example of this that you have all experienced is being in the dojo is a given context, right? So when you're outside of the dojo, I know some of you are doctors or whatever else, and some of you work in martial arts schools, so that's different, but you might have totally different worlds that you're in, and you find yourself kind of different roles, different hats you're wearing, but if you're in a certain place, you know, in the dojo, you put your best foot forward. And this is one of the best things about the dojo, is everybody who is in here, at least if you've been here for any given amount, any decent amount of time, you get what we're about, and you're like, okay, I gotta be my best self. Whether it's fear of being embarrassed, whether it's just like the energy kind of raises you up or whatever it is, you are your best self in the dojo. And that doesn't mean that you're, you know, necessarily garbage everywhere else, but it's like somebody pulls it out of it. Some of them are like, well, you know, I'm also great with my kids, and I'm also great over here and over there. Of course, I actually hope so. But for many people, this is one of the most powerful contexts. The context of the physical space of the dojo, the context of what you're doing here, being a martial artist, learning martial arts, the context of a meditation class. So of course, if being in a meditation class does not help you to, you know, raise your consciousness and help you to be more mindful, this is a bad meditation class. So what I'm essentially talking about is, first of all, the physical place that you are. This is a kind of context. But this is not the only kind of context. Now, my Sequel always says, and I say it now too, I should really stop saying my Sequel always says, because it's all the stuff that I say all the time too. Environment is stronger than will. But that doesn't mean that will is useless. It doesn't mean that will doesn't have an impact. But you'll notice that if you're spending lots of time in a place that has, you know, a higher vibration, or it really is putting you in the kind of mindset that you want to be in, you're going to be drawn up to that. And the opposite is true. If you're spending time in a really kind of crappy context, and you might not have that in your life right now, but almost guarantee you have experienced something like that, whether it's the people that you're with or, you know, it's the place that you are. And this is another, Steve Brown always used to say this. Somebody asked, like, what do I do if I get in a fight and I'm, you know, this and that happens, and you know, I'm going to totally butcher this. I'm going to have to call Steve and ask him what he said. He said something about, like, be careful not to trip over the pews. So the joke is, like, you're not getting into fights if you're in church or if you're in the, you know, in the temple. It's like you're not going to be tripping over pews. You're going to be tripping over bar stools or wherever the environment is that you're likely to get into a fight. If you are spending your time in a place that is bringing you up and causing you to be more mindful, then that's going to be super helpful. So I'm not trying to answer the question of you, but I'm giving you things to think about for yourself. So one, physical environment. Where are you spending your time? Two is the will part of that equation. So there's environment, there's will. Your context that you choose to create for yourself. And even within your practice as a martial artist, you'll have different contexts compared to other people. If you're like me, you take it very seriously and you're like, this is, you know, this is my life on a certain level. Everything is about martial arts. And you don't have to be at the same, you know, crazy level that I am with my practice to get a lot of the same benefits. and to feel pulled up in the right way. But if it is purely, I'm trying to get a workout in my practice. If it is a very strong feeling for you and you're always in here pouring yourself into it, then you will for sure get a great workout. If there's something more to it, if it is, I'm here because I want to be more mindful, I want to be the best possible person that I can be, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of it, then it's going to pull you into it. So you are choosing on some level. Some people walk in here and they're only looking for a workout, and those people don't usually last that long because you don't last very long doing anything without there being a really good reason why. Some people come into the dojo because they just wanted to defend themselves. If that's all that they ever want, unless there's a very strong reason why, they're in a situation where they have to always actively defend themselves, or they were, attacked and they're very concerned about it. Even that is not enough of a reason to keep people around for a very long time. So check this and recognize the context that you have for your practice. This is something that is up to you. When I talk about meditation and I talk about all these things, some of you take it for granted and take it as a given. You're like, well, of course, yeah, that's what martial arts is. That's not everybody. Some people hear that and they're like, oh, that's a nice idea. I'm not going to meditation class. See, more people right here. But your attitude, if you think of your martial arts practice as being this, then it will be that for you. And you can apply this same kind of context in other places in life. So the sneaky, cheating, really easy way of doing this for me that I found, I don't make this very complicated. I just try to turn the whole world into my dojo. Wherever I go, I'm not imagining that people are going to jump out and try to attack me, although I'm ready for it. I think of it like if I were in the dojo right now, and sometimes I make it this dojo, and sometimes I make it my Sifu's dojo. I'm like, what if Sifu was watching me right now? What would he say about what I'm doing right now? Would he give me that kind of side eye, or would he be like really happy with it too? And when I do that, it essentially flips a switch in my head. And I think you will all experience this too if you're able to do it. It's the same idea as when you walk on the mat, you instantly kind of become your best self or a better version of yourself. And you can take that and you don't unflip the switch. You bow off the mat, instead of that bow meaning, okay, now I can become a Slav again. You bow out and then you take it with you to everything else that you do. Part of our goal is to keep this state, this context that we have created for ourselves in our practice, and keep it as far out into everyday life as we can. And we want to spread that out as much of a physical distance and as much of a time distance. Just make it as much give it as much reach as possible. This context makes things very simple for you. Now, there are issues with this because if everybody in the world acted the same as everybody in the dojo, it would be so easy to be super mindful and happy and get along really well with everybody. But the truth is that everybody out there doesn't really know that they're supposed to be acting like they do in the dojo, like you do. So you can't necessarily treat it exactly the same. But maybe you've had partners in the dojo who don't get it yet. You're still doing your best to give them a great experience. And I'm not going to try to talk about it like for every single person listening tonight that being a martial artist or being in the dojo is like the highest, best possible context for you. You may have found something that works better for you, that brings you up to a higher state. Whatever that is for you, that context, a really simple way of using context to raise our consciousness and our awareness and be in a better place is to just treat everything like it's part of that. So for me, I treat everything like it's part of my practice. I walk down the street and I'm like, okay, how would I walk if I were in the dojo moving like a martial artist? If I'm having a conversation with somebody, how would I talk to somebody if they were a student and really need my help with something? How would I talk to somebody if they were a senior student who I need to really make sure that I'm showing the most respect to? whatever it is, and kind of fit it into that context, and it makes things kind of instantly different, better in most ways. So that is another idea for this. I'm looking at my notes and talked about all this stuff already. I touched on this before, but when we go through different places in life, maybe in one place we are in our family life, in another place we are in our professional life, you're, with friends in more casual places, you wear different hats, you're playing different roles. And it is natural and okay for us to have these different roles. Don't think that you need to be, like, if you were in the dojo on like high alert and everything's like a little bit stressful for you because you're really trying to like walk around and make yourself the whole time. First of all, you don't need to be like scared necessarily. There's a difference. There's a fine line with a clear distinction between being scared and being respectful. I want you to be respectful, not scared. Be scared when we start to spar, and respectful when we're in the dojo. But you don't have to have the same kind of, be playing the same role everywhere you go. But you might notice that, hey, when I'm playing this role, I'm really good at this naturally. You might want to play around with kind of merging these roles, right? So in the dojo, you might be really working on becoming a great partner. And as a great partner, you're taking care of each other. You are not just interested in what you're getting at. You're thinking about, what's my partner's experience? How can I behave in a way that gives them the best possible experience here? And treating somebody as a partner, not as an opponent, is one simple example of a context or a role that you play where if you took that outside into everyday life, it really changes things simply for you. Wherever you are, where you feel like this role that I have, the context that this gives me, can be powerful and really well suited for a different situation. Try bringing that role into this other place. But also, play around with this. We have a tendency to get kind of pigeonholed into a certain way of being. And maybe it's a couple of ways of being, or maybe it's just like one way of being. And there are lots of other ways that we can do that we don't really explore, we don't really allow ourselves to be. This was a huge thing for me when I started practicing and teaching, because I had really put myself into this very small space of kind of quiet. I don't really command any attention. I am not really worth listening to. I am, a tiny person with nothing good to say. And when I started practicing and I realized, like, okay, I can actually get really great at this and started building confidence, but then when I had to actually be in front of people and teaching, there was nothing about me that was naturally built for teaching and commanding any kind of attention and getting people excited about anything. I think you would probably have fallen asleep if you spent time with me or became a martial arts teacher. And so this was really fun for me. Kind of hectic in the beginning, but really fun to be able to try on this new hat and step into this new role of, oh, I'm going to be this way that I have never been before in my life. You might encounter that in your practice here or somewhere else in life. There might be things, ways of being, exciting new contexts that you just have to kind of come up with and use your imagination for this and think, how is it that I never am? What are the ways of being that I never give myself a chance to experience? What are these things that I never get to do? These ways that I never get to be? And then try it. Like you would try putting on a hat. I don't wear hats. I don't like messing up my man bun. But like you put on a hat and it kind of feels different. And you say, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to take that hat off and I'll put this hat on now. All right, that's a different hat. When you put on a hat, it doesn't mean this is you permanently. You're not sewing the hat to your scalp. It's not a fixed thing. But it is a thing to try out, and you should have fun with it. Like if you had a closet full of hats, or anybody watch Schitt's Creek? if you don't know, that's the name of the show, and it's not a swear word. It's a great show. You should watch it. There's like this wall of wigs that one of the main character has, and it's like every day she's wearing a different wig, and she's essentially the same person, but she looks totally different every time. In any case, watch Schitt's Creek if you haven't watched it yet. But it is a way of thinking of this that allows it to be fun and allows you to try things that you might not normally try. And you can try this with small things, but you can try it with really big things. Kind of try to go bold and exaggerate it and see how that goes. This is another way of thinking of context in a way that is just like, I'm going to try this way of being. I'm going to try myself as, like, use your imagination. What if I were the captain of a ship right now in this situation? What would I be doing? I was in a plane once that this was an airline that now does not exist because of safety issues. Pro Air, which used to fly out of New Jersey. But I was on this airplane, and we're like an hour outside of our airport that we were landing at, I think Newark. And we hear a loud slam. And I thought it was like a cart, like a food cart that fell over, because that's what it sounded like. And then the flight attendants started going up and down the aisle, and I thought, oh, they're cleaning stuff up. And they were running back and forth, and then the pilot comes on, he's like, get ready for an emergency landing. He's like, walk your seatbelts and we're going. He didn't say we're going down, but essentially that's the feeling that we got. And I, first of all, I think I was like 17 or 18 years old. I think it was right around when I had started practicing martial arts, but I didn't have like any of these tools. But it was really interesting how being in that situation kind of pulled something out of me that I didn't ever really have before. And I was sitting between these two older women, and I was a kid, but I like felt for some reason the energy that they were giving me. I'm like, I'm in charge of this row right now. I'm keeping everybody alive and I'm keeping everybody calm. And so I like poked one of the flight attendants as she was running by, and I asked very calmly, what happened? And she said, we hit a bird. And I said, okay. And I thought, that doesn't seem that bad. We hit a bird. And so I'm just like, we're going to be okay. And I'm kind of talking to these two women and holding their hands. And we're going down, and I can tell that they both think it's way worse than I think it is. So I'm just going to stay calm, and everything's going to be fine. I'm just cool as a cucumber through this whole thing. I really am totally fine. And it was not because I was normally that way. Not that I was like normally the kind of person who just freak out, but I can just tell, like, I've got to be this way right now, because if nobody else around me is, it's got to be me, apparently. And we landed at a different airport. We had to land right away. And they were like, we land, they pull the old-timey staircase up. There's like a ambulance and a fire truck come around to get us. And we just like get off the plane and go. I think the bus comes and gets us and takes us to the airport. But anyways, we hear on the news the next day that the bird that we hit was a goose, and it went into the windshield of the plane. It didn't fully go through the windshield, but it like cracked it. And so they were enough concerned that maybe this was going to be very serious. They immediately landed it, and it was like very dangerous and scary. So was I right to stay calm? Would I have been right to freak out? I don't know. It was a fun thing that happened to me. And it's never happened to me since. Of course, I've been in many other airplanes and lots of times where other people are freaking out and other weird stuff happening in airplanes. Ask me someday, not in class. I've got lots of really strange stories. I just get to sit next to the weirdest people on the plane. But that way of being was something that I just kind of stepped into in the moment. Now, you cannot guarantee that you're just going to step into that kind of context or way of being. It's something best if you practice it. But play around with it and kind of see what comes up naturally in different situations. And if it's something that you don't like, try it in different hacks. See what that feels like. Yeah. Okay, so some of you were in class earlier this week when I was not, and that is very strange because I'm in class all the time, even if I'm sick. I was sick enough, not COVID, it's definitely a cold, very clearly a cold, but I didn't want to spread it around. It's the first time I've been sick in a year and a half, and it pisses me off. I hate being sick. I have what you would call a disempowering context around being sick. And this is not the way that I want to be, so I'm going to try not to reinforce it too much when I talk about it tonight. But I will say that when I am sick, generally speaking, I'm the biggest baby that you've ever seen. I want people to take care of me. I just lay in bed or lay on the couch and I'm like, soup, water, and I'll still, and you may or may not be able to tell tonight, but I've still got, some congestion. I don't feel 100% far from it. But when I'm teaching, I gotta be this way. I gotta be on, and I'm yelling through my sore throat, and I'm addicted to Ricola right now. But when I'm not here in the dojo, I allow myself to be in that very big baby kind of context, and it's funny, and I laugh at myself when I'm there, and I recognize that I don't need to be that way, and I recognize that at any point I choose to, I can flip a switch and be this way. And I'm sure that you've all experienced this at some point in your life. Being sick does not have to be that way. Being sick can just be like, well, this is just a physical sensation that I have. I don't have to make it mean all of this stuff that I usually make it mean. And my mind goes to every single time I'm sick, even if it's just for like 3 days, like this time. What if this is it? What if I'm going to be sick for the rest of my life? I never get better. I'm congested, and my body hurts, and I have a headache, and this is just it. And some of you were like, yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, and I just might feel kind of like crap like that at some point for the rest of your life. I'm already starting to feel that way with you guys. But that's not helpful. That is not an empowering context. So there are certainly contexts for ways of being and roles that we step into that are not going to be helpful. They're going to be the opposite. They're going to take away our power and make us feel helpless. So be aware of that and recognize that it is largely up to us. We get to choose if sick is a disempowering or an empowering context. You can choose that, like, hey, I'm sick, but I'm going to kind of rise above it and be awesome. And let's say that you're sick and also everybody else at home is also sick. Someone's got to take care of business. It might have to be you, so get ready for it someday. I'm assuming that's going to happen to me because I'm sure I'm going to be able to sick. Okay, and the last thing I'll talk about is I wrote the article, the blog last week about the Ki. And what does Ki have to do with context and mindful context? Not a lot, but I'm going to try to find a way to put it together. Your context that you put a Ki, for those of you who don't know what a Ki is, I probably shouldn't do one. I'm going to give you one Ki and try not to hurt my throat as I do this. Ki is roughly like this. So a Ki is a spirit yell. This is something that explodes from the diaphragm, and it's something that kind of is like a lightning flash. It's a powerful thing. If you have a disempowering context around Ki's, and you think that like this is embarrassing, other people are going to hear my Ki, and it's so bad, or whatever it is that you have, that's going to make your Ki bad. It's not going to allow it to just flow through you naturally. If you have a great context, and you're basically just making your Ki part of what you do as a martial artist, context as a martial artist is a very powerful one, then it's going to flow through you and be awesome. It's going to be loud and things like this that you'll encounter in practice in your life. But it's a very, I guess, tangible one. Tangible is not the greatest word for something that you can hear and not feel, but it's kind of a good PI you will feel. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll feel yours, and you'll feel somebody else's because it's that, impactful. And a bad PI can have the same effect. It sucks the energy out of the room and makes you feel depressed and terrible. So your PI can be a way to maybe bring you into a more powerful context. It can be a way to test where am I at right now. If I can get a great PI, if I can be loud and not be stopped by worrying about other people judging me or anything like that, then that's great. So a PI can be kind of like a litmus test. It's like a quick thing. If I can do it right now, that's great with a great context, or it can attach you to one. If you are in a not so powerful context with your PI, then having to do it is gonna bring you down. But this is just an opportunity to practice. PIs, for many people, are one of the things that make you the most self-conscious, that make you really feel like, this is so embarrassing. And if you can get beyond that, and your PI is just, like I said, it's like a lightning strike, then you can do that with probably anything else. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just go out into the world and start PIing random people, because you'll probably get in trouble and you'll cause a car accident if your PI is really good. But some people say that PI is not just with your verbal kind of explosion. It's also something about your eyes. It can be just about the way that you're standing. There could be a nonverbal PI. But the way that you bring all of your attention and energy and your entire essence into one point and are there as solid and powerful as you can be, no matter what's going on around you. You can be PIing in a field of wheat by yourself miles away from civilization, or you can be PIing in a crowded class where everybody else is also really good at PIs, and this is, could be really bad for me. Wherever you are, if you're able to bring yourself into that single-pointed way of being, that is hugely powerful and beneficial to you. Whether you're doing a PI or doing anything else, you should be able to do the same thing with a strike. You should be able to do the same thing with any context that you find yourself in or that you place yourself in. So the PI is a fun thing to practice as an example, but not even close to the only thing that can do this. Finding something that you used to find very difficult to do, something that you used to be very self-conscious about or embarrassed about, and then step out of that context into this new context. Now I'm powerful. Now it is something that actually brings me up and attaches me to something greater. Then you've really got something there. So try to find this with your meditation. Many people have a disempowering context with meditation. They think I'm bad at meditation. They think I can't do it. I can't sit still. I can't calm my mind. I'm just bad at it. And all I do when I sit there is I just stress and I'm awful at it. Well, if you cannot convince yourself that you can be good at meditation, it's going to be like that for you forever. So you might have to just pretend that you're great at meditation. You might have to just connect to a small, the tiniest bit of progress that you can point to. And it might literally just be, I finally was able to sit still for a whole minute without moving. Okay, that's something you can point to and say. This is something that I'm getting better at, something that I have a powerful context around. But if you have a powerful or empowering context, something that makes you feel like when you're meditating, you are bigger than yourself. You are expansive. Your consciousness is, taking up the whole planet, the whole universe. This kind of context will be very helpful for your meditation. So recognize this when you sit. Are you sitting like, here we go again? Just sit here. Recognize that is not going to likely result in a great meditation. If you're sitting like, yes, here I'm transforming my body into a mountain, and my mind is like the atmosphere, it's taking everything, whatever is helpful for you. Sit with an intention that pulls you very strongly and immediately into a great place for your meditation. And when you lose that, try to come back to that context. For me, one of the things that I've noticed works the best for me to create a strong context is to recognize that I'm not just meditating for myself, because that only takes me so far. When I think of it like I'm meditating for all of my students so that I can be the best possible teacher, I'm meditating for my future kids so I can be the best possible father, I'm meditating for everyone in the world because maybe not everybody's going to meditate, maybe not everybody's going to be great at it. I'm going to do what I can for everybody else. And some of you are thinking like, that's such a great, high level, selfless way of looking at it. Sure, for me, it's kind of selfish because I know that it makes me meditate better now. I don't just think of myself and the small impact it has a big impact on my life, but in the cosmic scheme of things, it's a relatively small impact. I like to think that when I meditate, it's changing the whole universe. Everything is impacted by this. And going to that scale right away might be a bit much for you. You might just have to laugh at yourself. But at least think of it in terms of the people in your life who you are going to impact with your practice, with your meditation. And when you sit with those people in mind, that kind of context will motivate you. It's going to pull you immediately into a better state, that better context. So that's what we're going to try now. Fix those people in your mind. Who are you meditating for? To be the best person for these people, you will need to meditate deeper, with more focus, and just having the absolute best meditation that you can tonight. And then when you sit, let the thought of those people go and just focus on the breath. Sit.